Welcome to This Week in BJJ, the world's first and only live jiu-jitsu show. Brought to you by Defense Soap, defend what you have built, and Q5 Labs, stay alpha. And here's your host, Budo Jake.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of This Week in BJJ. I'm Budo Jake, and we got a lot to talk about today. We got 3 great new products, and we also have a good interview with Gianni Grippo. So let's get to it. So, you're a jiu-jitsu guy. You need a belt. There's lots of different belts to choose from. And some of them are really thin. Some people like thin belts, and some people like thick belts. This is for the guy that likes thick belts. Kaizen Athletic, we just came out with these belts. They are made out of gi material. And if you've been training for a few years, you might remember a Brazilian brand named War. They made some of the best belts around. Unfortunately, they don't make them anymore. So Kaizen Athletic just came out with their own. These are, again, made out of gi material. They're going to be super durable. They're not going to fray or tear. They have really nice colors. These are going to last you a long time. As long as you tie them properly, they're not going to come untied too easily. The friction of the gi material actually keeps them closed. They're available in all the sizes, A1 through A5, and all 4 colors, blue, purple, brown, and black. If you're a white belt, sorry, just pick up one of these when you get your blue belt. They all have the bars, whether it's the black bar for the blue, purple, or brown belt, and the red bar for the black belt. Best belts on the market. Available now at BudoVideos.com. Second up is the brand new Carlos Gracie Sr. book. This is a book that was published in Portuguese. It was put out in Brazil by Roger Gracie's mom, Hela Gracie. And it, let's say it created some waves. You know, a lot of people didn't know too much of the facts of Carlos Gracie Sr. This was, he lived quite a few years ago, and not all of his life was well documented. Some of the things some of the stories about him may or may not have been true, but this is the most definitive resource we have from his daughter about his life. So it's going to be finally coming out in English. It's available for pre-order now on BudoVideos.com. It's a really thick book, and again, all written in great English, not some bad translation. It's great English, and they'll be shipping out on October 20th. Now, I need to tell you that there's only a limited number of these books published. The Portuguese version is already sold out. Can't get them anymore. The English version will sell out as well. So jump on it quickly while you can, and we're going to take pre-orders now, and they'll be shipping out on October 20th. Can't wait to read that book. Last item we need to talk about today, and that is a brand new 2 DVD set, all on wristlocks, put out by me. Wristlocks are one of my favorite moves. I feel like they're one of the more underappreciated submissions in jiu-jitsu. And basically, I just felt that nobody else put out a really good instructional on wristlocks, so I felt like I needed to do it. For those of you guys that don't know, I practiced Aikido for 20 years. I taught Aikido for a long time as well. And there's a big difference between doing wristlocks when you're standing and doing wristlocks and grappling. So it took me a long time to figure out which ones worked on the ground, which ones worked on resisting opponents, and that's what I showed on these 2 DVDs. So let's take a look at a preview clip. One nice thing about wristlocks is when you get good at it, it's going to make guys really hesitant to grip. So that's a really good tool. When someone is not confident in gripping you, that's going to make you much more effective on your sweeps and all the rest of your jiu-jitsu. So his hips are controlled, his elbows locked in place. Now all I need to do is apply the wrist lock. Hope you enjoyed that preview. I know there's a lot that you can learn from this instructional series, so I hope you check it out. It's available for pre-order now. It'll be shipping in just a few days from BudoVideos.com. Okay, now it's time for the interview. This one was done with Gianni Grippo. Gianni, if you don't know, is one of the top featherweight competitors in the world. He started training out at Renzo Gracie's Academy. He trained there for a long time. Then he moved over to Marcelo Garcia's Academy. We're going to talk about the differences in training between those 2 places. We're going to talk about his Berimbolo style jiu-jitsu. We're going to talk about a little bit of a hot topic, his opinion on self-defense and sport jiu-jitsu, and his answer might surprise you. And we're also going to talk about making a living in jiu-jitsu, which is something that full-time competitors sometimes struggle with. So I think you're going to enjoy this interview. So let's take a look. Gianni Grippo. Today we have a very special guest. Gianni Grippo came all the way from New York City. Gianni, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
For you guys that don't know, Gianni is a relatively new black belt. January of this year, you got your black belt, and you've already done great. You're currently ranked number 10 in the featherweight and black belt adults. So how have things changed after getting your black belt?
I feel like a lot of pressure came off, and maybe that was my own fault, the lower ranks. But once I got my black belt, first of all, I had a lot more motivation to compete then. That's why I've been trying to travel around and get as much experience as possible. But I've had more fun with the process. I've kind of been like, instead of thinking of it as like a competition, I've been thinking of each tournament I've taken as like a test. I've seen each tournament I've been in, there's been good guys in there that I've looked up to since I was like blue, purple belt, which is an awesome feeling. And each time I go in there, I'm like, okay, I want to see where I stand with this guy. You know, win or lose. I'm like, okay, I win, great. I lose, okay, I know what I need to work on. Then the next tournament, you know, I remember there was a few times there was no one at featherweight, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go up to light because I see this guy's in here. He's very good. I want to see where I stand with this guy. And this whole process has been fun because it's just, like I said, like a test. I want to see where I stand by the end of the year and then just go on from there. So it's been a lot less pressure, and I've been enjoying that a lot.
You say less pressure. A lot of guys would think black belt would be more pressure because here you're competing against even bigger names. Why do you feel it's less pressure?
Maybe because I've seen people, you know, I would go into social medias too much, and I'd see they wouldn't expect too much from me. They'd say, Gianni, you know, he's good, he's done this, he's that, but man, those other guys, they're gonna whoop him a little bit. So I'm like, okay, fine, nobody's really expecting much from me. So, you know, obviously I have high expectations for myself, but I didn't need to prove it to anyone. I just wanted to prove it to myself, and that feels easy to me.
One thing that's been awesome is seeing you compete in the absolute divisions, which is really unusual for a featherweight, not only to enter the absolute divisions, but to win them. In the Boston Spring Open and the New York Spring Open, you took first in your weight and in the absolute, so congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. That was cool.
Yeah. What prompted you to jump in the absolute divisions?
Once again, no pressure, you know, and I just want to get more experience. I want to try to get as many matches as I can this year. It doesn't matter against who, how big or small. Just testing myself against anyone I can to see where I'm at. And, you know, absolute's another thing. I wasn't really going to do them too much, but my girlfriend forced me to do the one in San Francisco. I fought Hoffa in my weight class. I lost that match, and I was kind of bummed out. But I'm like, you know what? Let me just go off that, and I'll learn from that. She's like, jump in the absolute. Why not? So I got the chance. I did that. Didn't go so well that one. I lost in the semifinal there. But since then, I've won the last 4 absolutes. I've jumped in the opens, and it's been a good experience. You know, I've had a chance to see different styles, play against different guys. I want to fight against my own division. So it's just been the more the merrier. You know, the more matches, the better I feel like I'm getting. So I'm always going to jump in them if I'm at least healthy.
Right.
You know?
Let's go back in time a little bit. How old were you when you started jiu-jitsu?
I was 10 years old when I first started training.
And these are the guys that are monsters, the ones that started in the kids program, went through the whole thing, and then you probably got your blue belt at one point.
Yeah.
And when you started the adult program. So you weren't a typical blue belt at that point.
I guess not. I was still getting roughed up like a typical blue belt, but I'd been around. I had a lot more experience. I competed a lot when I was younger. I spent a lot of time at the lower ranks. I spent 3.5 years as a yellow belt alone, and my dad and I would go all around the country to like Nagas and Grapplers Quest and compete at all the local tournaments. So I got a ton of experience. I felt like I was very seasoned by the time I was a blue belt, more so than most other competitors. And I feel like I went into that very mature. I would fight blue belt juvenile, and I just had I feel like I had a better sense of maturity, a little better composure when I competed amongst the 15 and 16-year-olds that I would be competing with that hadn't been there as often as I had. So it was definitely a step up or an advantage, I felt.
Did your dad get you started in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, he basically got me started in anything that he found that would be interesting for me. Like he got me started in like karate and skiing all on the same day, and then we found boxing later on. We kind of stuck with that, and then he heard about Renzo Gracie Academy in New York City, and he's like, oh, let's give that a shot, and that just what happened to be what stuck.
Did you like it from the first day?
I loved it from the first day.
Right. You were one of the bigger names at Renzo's Academy for a long time. Take me back to those days. What was the environment like? Was Renzo teaching? Was John Danaher teaching?
I'd say for like the first 3 years I was there, it was mostly John Danaher, Renzo, and Sean Williams were the main 3 instructors there. And now when you look at that and see how popular the 3 of them are, it's pretty awesome. And I was very lucky during that time. But also during that time, I didn't get a really chance to take their classes too much because I was too young. I was the only kid at the Renzo Gracie Academy, and I didn't start taking classes until I was like 13 or 14. I took private lessons for 3 years, which shows the dedication of my parents, how much money they doled out to help me out. I took private lessons for 3 years with my first instructor, Magno Gama. I started with him when he was just a blue belt, and he was a big influence on my training. And along the way, of course, I worked with John and Sean and Renzo, and they'd always be there, to help me out at any time. So it was a pretty unique experience those times when all three of them would be teaching classes back to back to back.
Right. What was something special? What did you like about that academy?
I don't even know. Maybe because I liked being the youngest one in there. I liked being the baby of the school. I felt like I had a bunch of older brothers there. I'm the oldest of two. I have one younger brother, so I didn't really have an older brother to look up to or to take advice from. But when I was there, and I was the youngest one by at least 6 or 7 years, I had a bunch of older brothers who would give me advice on stuff. I'd tell them about school. I was in 5th grade. I don't know what type of trouble I could have in 5th grade, but they would give me, just some fun advice anyway. And it was nice just to hang around older people. I feel like they helped me in the long run. I felt like once I went to school, I always felt a bit more mature because I hung out with adults all the time, even at the age of 10, 11. So I just enjoyed being around people older, more wiser than me, understood more than I did. I would try to learn from them in any way.
Right. I didn't train jiu-jitsu as a child, but you did. So I want to get your perspective on something. We have all ages watching this show, and sometimes I watch kids in the academy if they're taking the adult class, for example, and the adults sometimes are very playful and let them move around a lot, and sometimes for whatever reason they smash the kids and just treat them like an adult. And I wonder, what do you think is better for the child?
I think you have to have a good mixture. I don't think you want to play too light with them. You don't want to make it into too many games because I don't think they would take it as seriously then. But obviously you don't want to smash. And unfortunately for me, I was on both sides of it. Some guys would play too lightly with me, and some guys would just go too hard on me. It's hard to say it for sure. I think it depends on the kid and how they handle training, what their level is, how serious they are about it. But I think there has to be a good medium somewhere.
Right.
For sure.
So you were at Renzo's Academy for a long time, and then you left. Why did you leave?
There was a lot of reasons. Some like personal, some just general. I noticed for years Renzo's was going in a different direction on what they wanted to do. They were starting to focus more on MMA, which was nothing wrong with that, but my goal was, to compete just in jiu-jitsu at that point. And I noticed this when I was about a purple belt. I noticed more of the instructors would be fighting MMA. They'd be away at certain points, and even to a point where when I first got my brown belt, I started the competition group. I feel like I needed to up my own training, so I would message people from all affiliate schools, and I would ask them to come down every Saturday at 2 o'clock, and we would train for like 3 hours. We'd have one competition class a week, and then the school picked up on it, and we did it like 3 times a week, and it got pretty good. But I felt like I needed to be somewhere where the only focus was on MMA. On jiu-jitsu, of course. I don't like getting hit too much. And so I looked out. I looked to see, what schools are out there, and people ask, why don't you go to the West Coast, or train with the Mendes brothers or Cobrinha or someone like that, something that fits more your style. But, I love being in New York. New York is a great place for me. I hope to stay there the rest of my life. And I found Marcelo's. I visited there a little bit. I talked to Marcelo. They were only focused on jiu-jitsu. They didn't have any MMA programs or anything, and that I like that. I like that feeling. And also at the same time, I found a lot of guys that were very close to my age, everyone who had the same goal. So I decided to make that move. And unfortunately, it didn't go over well. And of course, I didn't expect it to. But I felt like it was something that I had to do. It was nothing personal, But, and the nice thing is now at least everyone that I was close with at Renzo's understands. I always talk to them, so we stay close. And we're all good buddies still now, thankfully.
That's cool. I want to talk about Marcelo in a bit. But I remember the first time I went to New York for a jiu-jitsu tournament, I've always heard about how big Renzo's Academy was, how many students they had, so I expected to see a lot of them competing. And I was surprised how few there were. So I started to realize that, it does seem like their focus at Renzo's was not on competition jiu-jitsu. So I can totally understand your reasonings for leavings. But a lot of people started throwing out a word that's common to throw out when people leave gyms. That's the word crianche. Do Do you identify with that word, and do you agree with calling people that when they leave an academy?
I don't agree with it at all. And of course I'm going to say that because I did leave. But even when I was at Renzo's and guys would leave, so I would hear some people say in the background, but I never felt that, because how I felt was that they were the paying customer. They're the ones that put their money in every month. My parents did, I did for months, years, 10 years. And we should be able to spend our money where we choose. It's nothing personal. And if you do it the right way, they should understand, I believe. I believe I took it the right way. People would call me a cringe because they thought I did it the wrong way. I never said anything bad about the school. I always talk nicely about everyone when they asked me what were my memories about the academy. So I feel like that would go over right. But it's funny, the people that actually say that most are the ones that don't know me at all. They're the ones that, live in other countries or something like that. But the ones that were closest to me at Renzo's understand the most. And Magno Gama was actually the first one to call me. And I'm like, uh-oh, I got a voicemail. I'm like, I don't want him to be mad. That would upset me. But he called me encouraging me. He's like, you got to do what's best for you. You know what your goals are, and he completely understood. So that made me feel good about the move there. But I don't agree with the word. It's different now. Everyone wants to learn from everyone. And if you're the paying customer, I feel like if you're paying especially, you should be able to do what you want.
Right.
If you're wasting your money, that's sad.
Right. Of course, loyalty is an important quality of martial arts. When you consider jiu-jitsu as a sport, loyalty is less of a concern. But you're right. You're the paying customer, and some things are just based on geography. If you grew up in Kansas and you're going with a local school there and you want to make jiu-jitsu your life, that's probably not going to be the best area for you to be a world champion. You're probably going to have to go to one of the bigger teams.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you've been doing a great job at Marcelo's, and I wonder how it was moving over there, especially as almost a black belt as you were at the time. Was it tough making that transition?
Yeah, I spent my whole life at Renzo's. The majority of my life, I started there when I was 10, and I left when I was just about to turn 21. That was and I mean, I literally spent 6 days a week there. It's not like I was a part-time student.
It was like your second family.
Yeah. So it was definitely a big transition. But the thing is, I love being at Marcelo's because everyone there just welcomed me right away. Not just because maybe they knew me. Some of them didn't know me. A lot of them didn't know me, but they just, took me in because like, okay, this guy wants to work with us. This guy obviously, wants to help the team as well. They all just welcomed me very easily. The first day I was there, Marcelo invited me with the rest of the guys to go to lunch, and we had that. I just felt super comfortable as soon as I got there, and I felt like very welcomed right away, which made the transition very easy.
Right.
So that was good.
Marcelo has some particular aspects of his game: single leg X guard, regular X guard. Did you feel like your skills transitioned well, or did you feel like there's a lot of areas you needed to work on?
It was my game is definitely a lot different, so I definitely had to try to work on. It's taking me a while to kind of put the two together, but now after working with him for about a year and a half, I'm starting to see ways I can put it together. I start working my Del Hiva and Berimbolos, also and putting into single X and X guard more, and I'm liking it a lot because it's really expanding my game. After a while, you compete like on a high level for 3, 4, 5 years. I've been around enough since blue belt. And people start saying, "Oh, that guy is the Del Hiva guy. That guy's the Berimbolo guy. We know what he's going to do." So, and everyone starts getting Berimbolo defenses after a while. So, it's really nice to be able to open up. And now I start seeing single leg X more, X guard. I was happy this past weekend in Vegas. I was able to get X guard, which was like awesome. I wouldn't have cared if I lost. I felt that good about being able to open up my game more and playing from different positions. So definitely, I feel like Marcelo's has helped expand my game more. And I thought it was going to be very difficult, but it seems to finally start clicking, and I'm starting to feel more like part of it, part of Marcelo's crew playing X guard a little bit more now.
Right. A lot of people refer to Marcelo as being a small guy, which is anybody that's met him knows that that's not true. He's not very tall, but his legs are really thick. Do you find that there's some things that he can do because of his body type that you just can't?
I believe that, but I believe if you drilled enough, if you practice enough, you can make it work. Definitely, there are things that work for him. Sometimes he does some moves, and I'll watch on MG in action, or I'll watch in training in person, however, and I'm like, okay, I want to try that. He does that really well. But sometimes it's just his body type, it just works really well for him. But I do feel with practice it can happen. It's just maybe not as easy.
Right. Okay, a more general question now, Gianni. Is jiu-jitsu a sport or a martial art?
I'd say it depends on what you want to do with it. It can be like a martial art where you use it more for self-defense and stuff like that, but it's also a sport at the same time. Depends on they seem like jiu-jitsu can turn into two different styles if you want.
Yeah. One topic that's been really hot these days is self-defense versus sport jiu-jitsu, and there's heated arguments on both sides of the fence. I know you compete a lot. You're an active competitor, but I'm just curious about your background in self-defense. Did you spend much time learning any self-defense, and do you practice any now?
Not really. I never really got into it too much. Maybe because I was just the competitive guy that just wanted to compete. And then whenever a street situation came up, I would just be like, you know what, I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. And that'd be it. I never tried to get myself into a street fight scenario or anything like that. Maybe I think in fourth grade once this kid tried to tackle me, but I did like a good hip escape and I walked away.
Right.
That was about it. I never wanted to really focus on self-defense because I just wanted to focus on competing. I was always a very competitive person, even from the age of 10. And then if I ever had a self-defense situation, I would call a teacher from the recess or something like that, or I would just, try to walk away from it. I never tried to get involved with that to begin with.
Right.
So.
My point of view is that if you want to be a world champion, which I assume you do, that you have to devote 100% of your focus towards that goal, and you probably don't have time to practice self-defense. But there are others out there that will hear this interview and they'll think, Gianni, I can't believe it. You're a black belt and you don't practice self-defense. That's a core fundamental of the art. How can you call yourself a representative of the arte suave?
Yeah.
How would you reply to that?
Well, at the same time, I feel like a lot of the techniques I practice I can use in self-defense. If I ever was in a situation like that, I feel like all the techniques I've practiced starting from white belt, they kind of can fit together. Obviously, there's more official ways of practicing self-defense. But I feel like with all the basic techniques I've gone over since I was 10 years old, if I really had to in a street fight scenario or in self-defense, I can be able to use those. So I don't feel like sport jiu-jitsu completely can't help at all in a self-defense situation. Obviously, there's more focused, situations you can practice, but I feel like the stuff I've been doing since the basics, since I was like a white belt, can also come into play. So I don't feel like I would know nothing. It's just obviously I was more focused on the competitive side. If the street side ever came, I feel like I can handle my own as well. Right. Hopefully that doesn't have to happen. Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you. I love practicing sport jiu-jitsu. It's an incredible workout. It's a lot of fun. It's bred innovation in the art. And, what we do with our time is up to us, right? But do you think that when you become a teacher someday, which I imagine you will, and you have your own academy, do you owe it to jiu-jitsu or to your students to teach self-defense?
Yeah, I definitely believe that's a good part to have in a program. Marcelo's has it in the program. It's not full because if you read their shirts on that the Marcelo makes, it's sport jiu-jitsu right on their shirts. So obviously we support sport jiu-jitsu, but at the same time we do show self-defense because there's all different types of people that want to learn jiu-jitsu in different ways. Maybe they don't want to compete, so you don't want to just have it for certain individuals. You want to open it up for everyone, no matter what they want to do with the sport. So I definitely, if I have a school someday, which is the goal, I would love to, or I would definitely implement, self-defense programs.
Mm-hmm. You're a good representative of what's referred to now as modern jiu-jitsu. Things like de la riva, lapel guards, berimbolos, inverting. Why do you like those sets of techniques?
I kind of just found it, I played like a basic de la riva starting when I was a blue belt. I watched a lot of video. I saw myself competing at Worlds as a blue belt when I was like 16 years old, and I played de la riva, and I even kind of went for something that was almost like a berimbolo. So once I started seeing guys like Cobrinha come around and the Mendes brothers came around and they started doing berimbolos, I was like, I can put this almost right into my game, and it kind of just transitioned nicely. So I kind of had a sloppy de la riva, and I would kind of go for all the basic stuff, not too well. And then all of a sudden I started seeing the Mendes brothers and Cobrinha and all of them playing the de la riva, and I was like, okay, I think I'm going to stick with these guys. Everyone says that blue belt is that transition period where people kind of figure out their game. And I kind of had the de la riva, but then once I found those guys, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to really latch onto this.
Cool. So Gianni, you're doing great in your first year at black belt, but what are your future goals?
Future goal is to, like, keep competing, of course. I don't know how long. People ask how long. It's impossible to tell for me. But, definitely the goal is to stick with the sport on some level. Sometimes my parents would be like, oh, are you going to get a real job? I'm like, what's these 12 years been for? If I'm going to just go find another job if I've already been doing this for so long. So, I hope for the meantime continue to build up teaching seminars, getting to go around, make money off that. And then someday, once I feel like I've accomplished the goals I want to accomplish, competing-wise, that I can look to open up my own school. Once again, I don't really know, but that's definitely a goal I have in mind.
You mentioned competition goals. I imagine black belt world champion is one of them.
Absolutely.
Are there any other competition goals you have?
Do that a few more times than once. And I mean, ADCC, first you got to get there. But I mean, I've been watching that event since I first started training. I've always thought that was one of the coolest events. So I definitely want to be a part of that and hopefully have a chance to win that someday. I think that's any main competitor's goal, try to get there.
Yeah. Before we head to the mats, I want to talk about your upcoming super fight. You're going to be facing off against Tanquinho at the BJJ Expo. And in my mind, Tanquinho must be one of the most frustrating guys to fight. He's very intelligent. He knows the rules really well and just always seems to eke out a victory.
Yeah.
Of course, he's been doing great in MMA too. But what are your thoughts on that match going into it?
Well, first, I'm really excited about the match because I have a lot of respect for Tanquinho. One thing that I always, when I go into super fights, I don't want to have any hate towards the guy. I want to have a respect for him. And I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to fight someone that kind of talks smack or something like that, or, that's why I'm looking forward to it, because I've known him for a while. He's a super nice guy. I think that's going to be a great match. And also I'm looking forward to it because he's another guy. I've said, I want to see where I stand with certain guys. I kind of have I'll have a checklist. I'll be like, okay, I got this guy. This guy's very good. Work my way up a little bit. Tanquinho is there. He's been the featherweight world champ. He's beaten Rafa Mendes, Cobrinha a few times before. So now I'm like, okay, you know what? I know I'm the underdog, but I want to see where I stand with this guy. I want to see just how much I can give him, and I feel very confident about it. I believe in my training. I believe with who I work with. The guys at Marcelo's, besides just Marcelo, are very good. I know they can push me. And, I believe in myself. I believe I can come up with a good strategy and eke out a win if I have to as well.
Awesome. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Cool. Before we go to the mats, where can people find out more about you?
They can go to my Facebook, just Gianni Grippo, or I have a blog site that I post on regularly at GianniGrippo.com.
All right. Let's go to the mats, guys.
Reverse Del Hiva is just basically the opposite, where instead of using my left leg to have the Del Hiva and hook your leg, I'm going to use my right leg on your right leg. To have full control, I even like to hold onto my collar here. And now I have the X-guard position from here.